Presentainment 10 Secrets to Deliver Winning Presentations. When your team gives a presentation, delivers a sales pitch, or has any kind of communication, it is not enough to just bring your message across. The way you present, the voice you use, the content you deliver, all of it is critical to ensure your words are memorable. In this live stream session, Mr. Flo will share with us 10 secrets of a great presentation. His broad knowledge and exposure to many industries as an experiential marketing producer empower Flo to be an extraordinary MC and speaker with a holistic approach to any engagement. Equally, as a producer, he is aware of the little details which can turn a regular speech or stage show into an astonishing experience for the audience. Hello everyone, welcome you to EIY education section. And if you have any questions, just make sure that you're gonna comment on our comment section so that we can handle the questions to Flo and he will address your questions. Hi Flo, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. It's wonderful to be with you guys. I'm excited. Joining from Dubai, where it's right now 9 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, that's awesome. Would you like to share with us the first technique, Flo?
Absolutely. So what I did is today, as you already mentioned, I prepared 10 secrets to deliver winning presentations. And the first one, for me, that's a framework that I always follow, is master your content and know the audience. So why content and audience? Well, because this is always the starting point, right? If your content doesn't make sense for the audience, if your content doesn't deliver value to the audience, then you won't get across to them. If you ever heard about Aristotle triangle, the triangle of Aristotle, right? It's all about the emotions, it's about the logic and the credibility of the speaker. So that's a philosophy that all these three pieces are in place. And therefore, you need to know your audience. So that's very simple, the first secret.
I see. What are some questions we can ask in order to understand your audience more?
Well, the questions are always like, what's their background, right? Then all the W questions, the who, the where, the when, and then of course also the how, all of that is important. But really to think about the audience and not only to think about them in terms of demography and who they are and their roles, also think about their mindset. And especially in these times that we live in during COVID, right? You need to think about, are they actually worried right now? Is the next lockdown happening right now? So what exactly is going on with the audience? And once you understand that, then you can make sure that you also craft your content in a way that the audience will really receive it well.
I see. So that is the first point. Now let's come to the second secret of a great presentation.
Well, you did a great opening. And let me ask you a question. Did you practice that opening or did you prepare it?
Both, I think.
Right, you practiced and prepared it. But then when you look into corporate presentations, what's the reality? People start the presentation with putting a PowerPoint slide on and they go like, okay, my name is da-da-da and I work for this company and in this role and I'm going to talk about da-da-da. They do all of that with a monotone voice and no passion and no energy. And what happens? Well, the audience immediately tries to find their phone and gets onto Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn to do something better, or maybe even emails and do something more productive than listening to a presentation, which is really a shame. While another way around would be to have an engaging opening, an opening that captures the attention of the audience. And that's what you really want, right? Instead of just delivering. Sorry?
How can we make it?
Well, how can you make it? It's a good question. The sky is the limit. We are all creative people, so therefore we can do anything and everything. You could ask a question. You could start with a series of questions that lead towards a topic. You could start with a story. You can start with a video. You can actually engage the audience and do a bit of an interaction, a game, an icebreaker. As I say, sky is the limit. And if you want something to take on credibility, you know what one of my favorites is? Take a quote. A quote, right? You take a quote of anybody who achieved something that is valuable in the world, and you can use that credibility, you can use that knowledge, that philosophy to start your presentation. And all of that is 10 times more interesting and engaging than starting with, hi, my name is, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think that those corporate professionals understand these techniques, Floor. It's just a matter that we don't apply it. So, what really stops them from applying the introduction techniques into their presentation?
Well, as you said, right, in general, what we teach in communication and presentation skills and public speaking, it is often not rocket science. And often we know, but the reality is that people don't have the time or don't want to spend the time or don't think it is that important.
I
But
see.
all of these views are wrong. You need to invest the time. You need to put in the time to prepare, and you need to really put in the effort if you want to make an impact, and if you want to get an impact from the audience. I always like to compare it to Newton, right? If you think about, there's every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and if you put just that much effort and energy into it, then only that much comes out of it. But if you put more in it, then the more can come out of it. That's as simple as it is.
Yeah. Now let's come to the third one. I'm curious.
Well, we had the opening, we had content, and then of course we need a closing. And here the reality in corporate life is that I'd say maybe 80, 70%, let's close a presentation with, that's it. And that's it. It's just a term, but it doesn't add any value, and it doesn't add anything to your presentation.
Agree,
But
totally.
if you think about it, at the end, you even just say, now let me wrap up with these words. Everybody already goes like, okay, I want to listen because maybe there's something interesting, and he's anyways now finished, so I don't want to be embarrassed by looking at my phone. So you have the attention of the audience. And instead of then delivering something that they won't forget, what do? They go, that's it from my side.
Yeah, oh, thank you for your listening.
It's like you said, nothing. You can even just be silent. That would have a bigger impact. And I love any speeches from world leaders, and I've been watching commencement speeches at universities for a very long time because they are often very inspirational, great examples of great communication. And I watched Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum as he delivered a speech at the University of Berlin, and he closed with the words, "Other leaders promise, we deliver." Boom. Now, that's a great way to end a speech, because these are words that are curated, that are well crafted, and that sit with you. Words that most likely you won't forget. And that's what we should do, right? Deliver a message that the audience doesn't forget.
I see. That is really meaningful. How can we wrap a message, Floor? Because it's really hard to wrap up everything that you want to deliver into a phrase or a sentence. How can you do that?
Well, I'd say you need to look at your entire presentation, your entire speech, whatever it is. You need to look at it from one angle and say, what is that one thing, that one sentence that I would like the audience to remember? Because at the end of the day, everybody has to take in that much communication every single day. And if they only would remember one statement, what would that statement be? And if you look at your content from that kind of angle, then it's actually quite clear that, okay, it must be actually this message.
I see. I got your point now. Yeah, just one sentence that you really want the audience to remember.
Exactly. Yeah.
I got it. Now let's come to the fourth one. Fourth secret.
Well, it's not a secret. I mean, Seth Godin said it so well. He said, marketing is no longer about the products and the stuff that you make, but it's about the stories that you tell. And that's really what it is. It's storytelling. But if you look at corporate presentations, it's full of facts, of tables, of charts. How much can you really remember? If you tell people 5 facts, can they remember them? I'd say most people will already struggle to remember 5 facts. But if you put in front of them one story, the chances are really, really high that they remember that one story. So therefore, storytelling is such an amazing tool. And it's actually in all of our DNA. Our brain is wired to stories. So therefore, if you use storytelling in your presentations, you can make a huge impact and also have something, give your audience something that they can remember for sometimes a really long time.
How can we start with a story? Should we say that, let me tell you a story? Or how can we start with that? Because I observed that some speakers, whenever they try to tell a story, they may say that, let me tell you a story, or I'm going to tell you a story. What is the better way to start?
You can always do that and say, let me start today's presentation with a story. And I'd say there's nothing wrong with it. Because if the story that happens afterwards is really good, there's no harm done in saying, let me start with a story. But instead of doing that, you could go straight into, I remember vividly the first time that Lan and I had contact. It was da-da-da-da-da. I can go straight into the story. I don't need to announce that I tell a story. After the first 2 sentences, everybody will understand that I tell a story. So therefore, it is just a few words that you use to make yourself feel more comfortable, but the audience doesn't really need these words.
I like your star.
That's what I think.
Okay, great. Now let's come to the next one.
Well, the next one is, it is very, very obvious. Everybody knows that in theory. We all heard about death through PowerPoint, and we all heard about PowerPoint slides that don't make sense. But if you look at the reality of presentations, 80, 90%, whatever it is, are ugly slides. Slides that are overloaded with content, slides that are with charts that nobody understands, slides that are actually made for reading and not for presenting. And all of them just don't make sense. So instead of actually using, when you do a presentation where you're actually speaking to an audience, always go by the rule of creating visual aids, something that supports your presentation, your speech, and not just something that is actually made for the audience to read. And if you think about that way and say, let me create spectacular slides, well, then you're way ahead of the game, because the reality is that there's very, very few professionals that create spectacular slides. So PowerPoint is one to master.
I see. What is the first step to prepare a PowerPoint flow? Because we tend to put many information on slide. How can we be selective to choose what kind of information we're going to put there, and we present with impact?
Well, the first starting point is always to put together an outline. What do you want to talk about, right? Thinking again about your audience, what is the outline, what's the storyline, and then putting that together. And then, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with creating a deck that is really comprehensive and there's so much content on there, which is great, because that could be a great starting point, and that could be a presentation that you then, after the presentation, send out to everybody. But what you use for presenting, that's where you just should go. Edit, I'll take this out, I'll take that one slide with 10 content points and to put it actually on 10 slides instead of one, because it makes more sense to have less content on one slide. I can digest it, and that's really how you should go about it. So you need to edit, you need to cut, you need to delete to make sure that you have then something that makes sense for the audience and that the audience also can digest. And I always like to say, think about men. We are not good at multitasking, and everybody knows that. Yet, in presentations, I'm forced to listen to somebody, to read and understand, and sometimes even to think about what is shown on the screen. Overload. I'm challenged here. That's the reality.
I see. So it means that at first it's better to have an outline, right? You're gonna write down what you want to deliver to your audience, and then you put those key points into your slides.
Absolutely. So first you create that outline, then you just dump all the content that you want onto the slides. And then as you craft your presentation, as you craft your speech, then you actually look at the slides and say, okay, I've got now all of this content. I would like to show all of that content to the audience, but what adds value here? What makes sense? And then you need to go by the rule of film editors to say, cut your darlings. So even if this chart is so important and it's so near and dear to your heart, if it doesn't make sense to the bigger picture of the presentation, it has to go. So you need to be really, really strict with yourself and edit to come to a presentation that looks great, that is really visually attractive, but also that has not too much content. So it is a visual aid and it is not the main part of the presentation.
I see your point now. Yeah. Now let's move to the next one.
Well, the next one, that's my framework that we're following here, right? So we talked about 5 points around content, and now we talk about delivery. So how can you as a person make a bigger impact through communication? And the first one is all about deliver with your authentic style. If you understand what is your authentic style, what is your originality, and what is your superpower or your superpowers that you have, and we all have superpowers, then you can really connect with people on a deeper level. And I've seen it for so many times that professionals, they put themselves in a box. And even on a higher level, even the CEO would sometimes put themselves in a box and not show the world who they really are. And the problem with that is that you're not allowing your personality to shine as much as you can. And when you shine, when you let your personality come through, then you can actually really connect with people. And the problem, of course, is that some people are challenged because they are sometimes in an organization that wants people to fit in. Now, you need to, of course, find a balance. There's no point in being always funny or being always loud or being always controversial if it doesn't fit the culture of your organization. But it doesn't mean that you have to completely forget who you are within that organization. So you have to, of course, balance it out. But
When we
believing,
do, yeah.
sorry, come again?
How can we show who we are when we don't know who we are?
Everybody knows who they are, but sometimes we have to just dig a little bit deeper to understand who we are and to also understand who we are maybe in life and what part of our life are we not showing at work. I'll give you an example, and it's every personality is made out of different facets, right? And for example, one facet of my personality would be my afro. When I came to Dubai 10 years ago, I felt the urge of cutting my hair to fit into the corporate world that I was working then in Dubai. The funny thing is that the first question that I received from the team when they arrived, what happened to your hair? Everybody wanted actually that character, that personality. Happened twice to me. I cut my hair twice because I wanted to fit in. Then I understood, you know what, this is me, this is my personality, and it is okay. I won't be maybe attractive like that for everybody, but I actually will be good for some people. I will be actually liked by some people, and that's okay. We don't have to really connect with everybody in the world, and that's simply not possible. So you have to go onto a search, and you have to identify what other people like about you and like about your communication style, and ask questions, right? Ask questions of your family, friends, of your colleagues, of anybody around you to find out what do other people like about me. And then you can really bring out that more in your communication.
I see. So you understand what people like about you, and then that makes your own style in presentation, and it makes you authentic, just like what you said.
It makes you authentic. And the best of all is you don't have to learn language. You don't have to learn how to do better PowerPoint slides or anything, but you just have to actually embrace who you really are and show the world more of that. And you are able to deliver better presentations.
Yeah, very useful. Floor. Now let's come to the next one. What is the next one?
Well, the next one is speak with passion. I also work as an event moderator, and as an event moderator, I get to see speakers on a stage a lot. And what I experience a lot is that people deliver with a voice that is just so boring, and there's no passion in their body language or anything what they say and what they do, and they talk about their product, and it's simply putting you to sleep. And that is actually it's just wrong, and it doesn't help you. Now, what I have found out is that passion is a concept that many people don't understand, because they've got a fair point. How can I be passionate as a lawyer, for example? How can I be passionate about the latest litigation update? Well, that's a difficult subject to be passionate about. Absolutely right. But what you can do is to see passion as energy. And energy is something that you can control at any given point. So I can say, hi, Lan, it's so great to be part of this webinar and I'm truly excited. I can say, hi, Lan, it's great to be part of this webinar. I'm truly excited to talk to you guys today about 10 secrets to deliver winning presentations. And that's the difference, isn't it?
It is, sure. I have a question here, Flora. In case that there are some topics at work we're not passionate about to present, how can you find energy and passion in those topics? Because it doesn't mean that we like all of the topics in work.
So that's a really good question. And I'll show you my microphone here. So the microphone has a switch, right? I can go from minimum to maximum. And that's exactly what you can do with your energy. So I can talk about, give me any subject. Let's say I talk about the way how a road is constructed. That's not a topic that I'm passionate about. But I could say, now, if you look at the foundation of a road, at first you will find that the soil needs to be compacted by big machineries going back and forth. Or I could say, now let's take a look at how a road is constructed. It's actually quite fascinating because what you will find is that you have got big machinery that is going back and forth and compressing the soil to build that foundation. And that's just energy.
Yeah.
It's just energy.
And does it go to the authenticity factor that you just mentioned? Because if we try to put energy into the topics that we are not interested in, does it make you authentic?
Now that's amazing that you asked that question because I always tell people they shouldn't act. And the difference here between acting and using your energy is, for me, in my philosophy, I would act if I try, okay, let me talk to you about a road, how a road is compacted by trying to imitate somebody, right? If I would use words that are not mine, so I would try to say, well, you know, a road is compacted by using big machinery. That wouldn't be me, right? But if I just use my language and just decide that my mental state and my energy and passion and my body language and everything that I have comes from a different place, it's 100% me, 100%. I'm not asking you to change anything. All I'm asking you is to use that little dial that you have and crank it up a notch. It's literally, the analogy for me is really see yourself as a speaker. See yourself as a speaker, and instead of being at a very, very low volume, you go up the volume. You just crank up the volume. That's what you need to do.
I see. So it's still you, and you just adjust your energy.
Absolutely. That's your energy.
Okay, what is the next great point to deliver a great presentation?
So we talked about passion and energy, and it's very much connected to the next point because it's all about owning the stage through voice and body language. And what I mean by that is it's very simple. A stage is not just public speaking. It can be a virtual stage. This is also a stage. There's a camera, there's a set. It's all the same. It doesn't really add up. But you want to own it through body language. And the difference is, if I would come into the picture and look like this, hi, or if I come into the picture like this, hi, just a simple smile already completely changes the way how you start a conversation, how you start a presentation. And it is not just a smile. There's so many aspects of your body language that you can actually look at that make an impact on your communication. And same goes for the voice. I always like to say, your voice is a Ferrari, so don't just drive it in the first gear. And it truly is. So if you understand your body language, if you understand what you can do with your voice to actually command the attention of the audience, well, then you can really make an impact here. And these are really tools that you need to watch. If you want to learn from somebody who's really great, I recommend looking at Joe Navarro. Amazing body language expert, and he also looks at the voice. He's really somebody to learn from.
I see. So you're gonna use your voice and also body language to make sure that you can have charisma in what you said.
Absolutely, right? And when you're, for example, standing on the audience, standing on the stage, and you already have charisma, but you also see, for example, your content was maybe not that relevant for the audience, or was just too much, and you're starting to lose the audience. Well, then you can use your voice to get them back, right? You could speak a little bit louder, you could speak faster and show them that you're really excited about the next point, and then make a pause and slow down. Or you could speak suddenly a little bit louder. You can make an impact through your voice. And that's really what I mean, that you've got this great tool, but instead of using it, many professionals just actually just deliver, but without making an impact.
Gotcha, gotcha. That's an interesting point. So, voice in voice, we have different factors in order to create a great voice in body language. The same.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
I see. And I think that we're coming to the final point, right, Flo?
Two more. 0.9 on my list.
Oh,
0.9.
okay, two more. Oh, awesome.
Maybe I did a mistake here. Math was never my best subject here, but in my list it's right now 0.9. So I'll take the blame if I did an accounting mistake here.
No worries. Just go ahead.
So here we go. Create a connection with the audience. What I have observed in many presentations is people deliver content. But going back to the first point, that was about content and about the audience. So when you just deliver content and again forget that you actually have an audience in front of you, then you're again missing out. What you should do is to create that connection with the audience. And I find it fascinating that when I sometimes ask presenters, do you sometimes feel a connection with the audience? They go like, what is a connection with the audience? I find that fascinating, that you maybe have not understood what it means that to have a connection with the audience. And it's very simple. If you have that opportunity to look at an audience and you see that they're looking at them and you connect with them through eye contact, that's a connection. And virtually, well, you have to connect through other tools, whether it's then polls or whether it is the chat or whatever tools you're using. But you need to create that connection with the audience. And instead of just delivering a monologue all the time, try to actually turn it into a conversation every now and then. That's the magic.
I see. So the connection is you feel that you are standing there and you're connecting to their eyes. You look at their eyes and you feel that they are totally into your speech. Is that the connection that you are mentioning?
Absolutely, yes. And as I said, right, with virtual communication, you do not always have that opportunity to feel that connection. So therefore, you need to use other tools to make sure to create that connection.
So if you don't have a chance to see your audience face, just like right now, I and you don't have any chance to see what people are watching their faces, how can we make sure that we engage and we connect to them?
Well, I love using polls, for example. Polls. And when I say polls, I don't just like to use polls. I like to use, I don't just like to use polls where you've got ABC option to tick. I like to do word clouds, because that gives everybody the opportunity to express themselves and it gives me the opportunity to comment on it. Fantastic tool to use. Or, of course, in the chat, right? Everybody in the chat, tell me quickly a hi, a hello, where are you from? Do you agree with my last comment? Would you like to learn more about this subject? Having a conversation, giving the audience also that opportunity to speak to me, that's what creates a connection. Yes, it's about eye contact, but it's also about really making sure that we have this conversation. That's the connection that we can have with an audience.
I see. Got you. Now let's come to the final point, Flo.
The final point is all about the wow factor. Let me throw it right back at you, Lan. Do you know what the wow factor is? Well, the wow factor is a moment that the audience doesn't forget. It's a moment that really sits well with the audience. If anybody is in marketing and has briefed ever an agency, I am sure at some point you use the term, and we would like to add the wow factor to the concept. So the wow factor is really something that is magical, something that sticks with the audience. And you can do that in both areas of my framework that I showed you, right? You can do that when it comes to content, or you can do it when it comes to delivery. So let's look at an example for content. Instead of just saying, okay, today No, let me give you a better example. A great wow factor for content is IBM. IBM did a research in 2009, and they looked at the amount of data that is being created in 2010. So a forecast of the data that is being created in 2010. Now, I do not have that number handy, but that number it's well above megabytes, yottabytes. It's a crazy number. So instead of just putting that number out, a number that nobody understands, because back in 2010 for us, 1 GB was already a big number. So you put a number out that I cannot understand, I cannot quantify it. It's just a number. They converted that number into a wow factor, which says, in 2010, the amount of data that is being created is equivalent to a stack of books from the sun to the most distant planet in our universe, Pluto. Now, do we understand cosmic distances? No, we don't. But I see the moon and I know, well, the moon is so far away, I'll never get there in my lifetime. And if I then just think about another planet, even further. So sun to the most distant planet, crazy. And you can do the same for delivery. If you think about delivery, I'd like to give you one example of a friend of mine. He sells kitchens. A German who sells a German quality kitchen. And what he did is he would pull out the drawer, and then in every presentation, he would actually jump in the drawer, and he must weigh 80 plus kilograms. So if somebody with 80 plus kilograms jumps in a drawer and the drawer doesn't break, it is something the audience won't forget. The audience might forget everything else that happened in that presentation. They might forget the name of the kitchen and everything else, but they won't forget the guy who jumped in a kitchen drawer and it didn't break. So therefore, when the time is right, they go like, we need a new kitchen. We need something solid. Remember that guy who jumped actually in the kitchen drawer? Let's have a conversation with him. And that's what you want to have, to create a memorable experience for the audience.
I see. So you create something that out of their expectation in order to create a wow factor, right?
Absolutely. And again, same with the opening and the closing. Sky is the limit. You can be creative. But there's great examples out there where people create these wow factors that just stick with the audience. And sometimes when it comes to content, and that's the most obvious and also the most practical for professional presentations, it's very simple. Look at your numbers and find ways to translate them so they are not just a number, but actually something meaningful.
Very meaningful. Last point. All of the points. Flo, I think that we come to the end of our live stream section today. What is your final message that you would like to share with our viewers to make sure that they can deliver a great presentation?
Well, I would like to actually go back to what you said earlier when I asked you, did you practice and prepare for the opening? And you said both. The reality is, in our professional lives, we never have enough time. But if you think about it, you spend so much time with your emails. You spend so much time in preparing reports and this and that. And when you prepare a presentation, don't just focus on actually putting a PowerPoint deck together. Spend time in what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. And don't do that just once, don't do it just twice, do it a few times. Really challenge yourself. And the more important the presentation is, the more you should practice and prepare, and the better your communication will be.
Definitely practice and prepare. Always, as always. Thank you so much for Mr. Flo for joining us today in order to share the 10 secrets of a great presentation. On behalf of our viewers, I do feel thankful so much for joining us. And everyone, tonight we're gonna have another live stream section which is conducted by me and also Miss Kathy Wing with the topic what can speakers learn from actors, and we hope to see you at 8 p.m. tonight. And Mr. Flo, thank you so much for joining us.
Very welcome. Thanks for having me, and all the best to you guys. Bye.
Yeah, bye.